Alright, hello everyone and welcome to NFL Discussion Thrown in the Towel. I'm your host and NFL enthusiast, Dougie Doug, and this is a weekly segment where every week I pick one team and throw in a towel on their season. Now we have reached an interesting time of the NFL season. We are basically 3 weeks away from the conclusion of the season, and this segment unfortunately does not last the entire season. I don't know what next week looks like, but I know what this week looks like, and this week it's a pretty bare bones cover type of situation here, but I was able to have enough to go on to at least make a week 15 edition. Also, quick side notes: teams that have made the postseason, those teams are disqualified from throwing in the towel for reasons that are rather obvious. They're in the postseason, so their season will continue regardless of wins or losses going forward. And then teams that have been mathematically eliminated, there's been 6, and the towel is thrown in all 6 of them, so not to worry about that. And with that, we'll go and get right into it, starting with the... Oh, come on. There we go. AFC East, which has no representatives this week. The Dolphins and the Bills got a win. Meanwhile, the Patriots and the Jets have been mathematically eliminated, so they're disqualified. They're out of this segment. So going forward, forever long the segment continues, it's just the Dolphins and the Bills in the AFC East. Both of them got a win, so no representatives here. AFC North, that division still 4 strong, but we threw in the towel on the Steelers last week, so that one doesn't have to worry about them. And then the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns all got wins. AFC South, we finally have a team here, and it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. And yeah, with the Colts and Texans getting a win and the Titans being officially eliminated. And it's getting away from the Jaguars. The season is. A few weeks ago, they were 8-3, competing for the number 1 seed. Now, after getting pasted by the Ravens on Sunday night, their lead in the AFC South is gone. They're tied with the Texans and Colts. They have gone from vying for a home field advantage to potentially missing the postseason altogether. And in case you wondered if it gets even better, it does. They not only do they have a must-win game against the Buccaneers in Week 16, but Trevor Lawrence is in the concussion protocol. If he sits, the Jaguars are in real trouble. AFC West, one team this week, and that is the Denver Broncos. And the Broncos entered Week 15, one of the NFL's hottest teams after winning 6 or 7 games. They left it looking more like a pretender than a contender after getting waylaid by the Lions. If there is a silver lining moving forward, it's that none of their remaining opponents currently sport a winning record. That's good, because for Denver to have any real chance of making the playoffs, the team needs to win out. And even then, it will still need help. Will it get that help? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how the proverbial cookie crumbles. So that's it for the AFC this week. It's just the Jaguars and the Broncos, and between these two teams, I went with the Broncos as a representative. It's hard to pick the Jaguars when they could still win their division, but it could also, again, very easily slip from them. Meanwhile, the Broncos on the outside looking in on the postseason picture, it was thought to be that maybe they could challenge the Chiefs for the West title. That looks unlikely, just like them achieving a playoff spot. Over in the NFC, starting with the NFC East, so the Commanders have been eliminated. The Giants are still hanging on. And as for the Eagles and Cowboys, those two teams made the postseason, so they are disqualified from throwing in the towel. So even though they lost, they can't be in the segment. They can't be in the segment anymore. So no representative this week. NFC North, just one team, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. That division's still 4 strong, but for the Vikings, Saturday in Cincinnati, they rolled out their 4th starting quarterback this season, and while the name on the back of the jersey was different, the result was the same. And after dropping 3 of 4, Minnesota's postseason aspirations are fading. Now, it wasn't all Nick Mullins' fault, but he certainly didn't do the team any favors with those 2 interceptions. Now the Vikings are left with essentially no margin for error if they want to make it to the postseason. And with 2 of the final 3 games being against the Lions, that is quite the uphill climb for this team. And I guess it kind of depends on how the defense plays. The defense was playing pretty good against the Bengals, but there's only so. But as is often the case when the offense struggles, there's only so much the defense can do, and so it ends up kind of breaking, because it will bend and bend and bend, but there's usually a breaking point, and Minnesota's defense hit that breaking point. Now the whole team's got to rebound. Nick Mullins remains the starter. How long does that last? I guess we shall see. NFC South, one team this week, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. And Week 15 was when it all came apart for the Falcons. They entered Sunday's game with the one-win Panthers in first place in the South, and they left not in first place, and basically a mess of a team with a bewildered head coach trying to figure out where things went wrong. And I guess for him, that was the quarterback position as he made the switch once again from Desmond Ridder to Taylor Heineke. Will that change things? Probably not. And meteor, and as has been the theme for the Falcons this season, it's been mediocre quarterback play that hasn't helped them one bit. But also another issue too is from the coaching, and that's not giving the ball into the hands of your best offensive playmakers. I guess you could say that's coaching malpractice. It sounds like Arthur Smith might retain his job for a fourth season, which would certainly be an interesting choice, to say the least. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did get fired, because it leans more in that direction than it does in the keep him direction. In the West, no representatives this week. Cardinals mathematically eliminated. The Rams, though, now the Rams are an interesting case. So the 49ers clinch a playoff spot there, disqualified from the segment, but the Rams are a team on a roll. They go on Thursday night and play the Saints, a game that they should win. Not an easy game, but a game they should win. And the Rams might just make a comeback and steal a playoff spot from the Seahawks here. So, and they do hold the tiebreaker, so things are in their favor. So I guess we'll see how that one plays out. I might have been wrong about the Rams. I'm willing to admit that. I don't quite see it just yet, but I'm thinking that maybe I was wrong. So representatives this week, Vikings and the Falcons, and between these two teams, well, I went with the Falcons. The Vikings still hold a playoff spot, and it's very likely they can retain that. Again, they're facing an uphill climb, but this team knows nothing but adversity. Just look at their whole season. And that's with the Falcons. Well, with the Buccaneers getting the win, truth be told, the Buccaneers look like the most complete team in that division, and they look more likely to win it. So that's kind of where I'm thinking with the South, is that pretty much the Falcons' only road to the postseason is through the South, but with the Buccaneers looking like the better team, I don't think they win it. So this is a recap followed by a highlighting of the 6 teams currently mathematically eliminated. I think it'll be interesting to see who all gets eliminated next week, who all makes the cut, who all can clinch a playoff spot, who all misses it. But this is kind of where we're at. Last week it was the Steelers, and they lost. And now they're switching quarterbacks again, going to Mason Rudolph and seeing what that can do for them. And the Chargers, they fired their head coach and GM, so mathematically they're still alive, but for all intents and purposes, their season is over. And the Rams, I talked about it week 9, this looked like a pretender of a team, but they've turned things around since then. So, as you recall, the matchup for this week is the Broncos versus the Falcons. That's your throwing in the towel Super Bowl. And between those two teams, I went with the Atlanta Falcons. As I talked about, the Buccaneers look like the better team in the division, so I'll go ahead and give them the NFC South crown. The Falcons mark the third and final team that I can throw in the towel in on the division. If I change my mind about the Buccaneers, I'll have to make a trade, but with how Atlanta played against the Panthers, unlikely. Desmond Ridder was, for all intents and purposes, a disaster this season. I think he had, one good game, but for the most part, he just kept turning the ball over. So it's unlikely he remains with the Falcons. Taylor Heineke, not the answer either. Arthur Smith, the head coach. Now there's an interesting one right there. And ultimately, again, as I said earlier, I think the way it looks right now, it leans towards more of him moving on. And I think right now the Falcons are a mediocre football team, and I think moving on from the head coach might help them lift them out of that mediocre status. But at the very least, though, something's going to change, and it certainly will be the quarterback position. Head coach is a toss-up. Maybe they can rise out of mediocrity with a new quarterback and the same coach. Maybe not. Again, I think the way it leans, you might want to think the way it leans right now, he goes, and I think that might help lift this team out of mediocrity in addition to finding a new quarterback. So that's this week's team on the Falcons, and with that, that will conclude this episode of NFL Discussion, Throwing in the Towel. If you like this episode, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below.